What is the funniest way you've ever seen a lawyer or defendant blow a court case? Story 1. Not a lawyer. I was being questioned as a prospective juror in a personal injury case. 8 people had already been seated. The plaintiff's attorney asked me the same question he had asked everyone else and gotten, "Yes, of course," as an answer. Do you feel that a person has a right to be compensated for his injuries? My answer, probably louder and slower than it needed to be, was, not if he got hurt because he did something stupid. I had poisoned the entire jury pool, including those already seated. They settled out of court in 10 minutes for an amount much smaller than they were asking for. Story 2. My professor was a lawyer, has worked on both sides of the law, and says the funniest things in court is when someone attempts to represent themselves. He said they never know what they're doing and usually blow it for themselves. Plus, counsel is a free right. Edit. I am referring mainly to constitutional law. Story 3. A prominent female attorney didn't like the judge's ruling in a family law case. She asked him if he was from another planet. The judge said, "I beg your pardon?" She approached the bench without permission and very rudely repeated her question. The judge told her to apologize. She refused. The judge had her thrown in the lockup for contempt of court. Story 4. I was working as court staff in a hearing where a guy was accused of robbing a grocery store. The defendant's lawyer was arguing that they could not identify the man in the surveillance camera footage as his client. While the footage was being shown to the court, the defendant leaned over and said loud enough to his lawyer, "Do you think they can tell that's me in the video?" Story 5. I am a lawyer now, but this was when I was in law school, and we had to go watch actual court cases in the local district court. A guy is accused of destroying some stuff his neighbor owns. After a complicated plea by his lawyer about how some evidence is inadmissible and therefore it cannot be proven the defendant is guilty, the judge delivers the verdict, agrees with the lawyers, and acquits him. The defendant gets up, walks towards the judge, as if to shake his hand and says, "Thank you, Your Honor. I'll never do it again." The prosecutor then, quasi-jokingly says, "Appeal." Story 6. A defense lawyer was delivering her closing statement to the jury. In her final sentence she said, "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I urge you to find my client guilty." There was a moment of silence and she then says, "Not guilty, I meant to say not guilty." Story 7. I'm an attorney and I heard about a hearing where there were several criminal defendants before the judge. The judge noticed a strong pot smell in the courtroom and asked if any of the defendants had pot on them. No one came forward and the judge proceeded, but the odor became stronger and stronger. Finally, the judge demanded the perpetrator to come forward. Finally, one of them come forward and had several bags of weed on him. I'm not sure what the charges were before him that day, but I wouldn't want to have been his attorney. Story 8. I observed a case where the plaintiff's attorney played Michael Jackson's "Man in the Mirror" as his closing argument to evoke an emotional response in the jury. He lost. Story 9. Not an exact fit for the answer, but I once worked at a company where we found out that a lawyer was trying to arrange a class action suit against us before it got off the ground. We found out because this lawyer attempted to email her client, but accidentally emailed us instead. We found the details of the class action. Story 10. I was the respondent, not the lawyer, in a civil case where the county accused me of violating a rule that a house cannot have more than 2 parties in a month. The county's prime witness admitted on the stand that 1. The rule was implemented specifically in response to a complaint against me. 2. The rule was not written in the county code. 3. The rule was not included in my warning letter nor in my citation. 4. The county had no expectation of ever applying this rule to any other resident in the future. The judge declared the rule null and void. Story 11. My father is an attorney and he always had a story for us when we would ask him this question. He tells it way better than I do, but I'll give it a try. Some dude was allegedly smashing a wall with a sledgehammer, with others in order to break into private property. The cops rolled up, and he was the only one to get caught. Fast forward a few months and this guy's in court. Apparently a cop says something about how the defendant was the only one caught, but there were two other men who fled on foot and couldn't be apprehended. My father's client's face lights up in a aha moment and immediately tells the judge, "Not true. There were four of us." I guess he thought if he could disprove someone that he would be let go. Safe to say he was found guilty of vandalism. My father says the judge just kind of sighed and told my father it would be a good idea to keep his client quiet. Story 12. I represent school districts. One of my clients has a farm that is used to teach agricultural science to the students. The manager of the farm decides to brutally euthanize a ton of chickens in full view of a group of elementary school students. Sometimes farms have to euthanize chickens. That wasn't the problem. The problem was that he was whacking the chickens over the head with a hammer, and he had to whack each chicken like 5 or 6 times before they were done. Because he's apparently some kind of psychopath. The poor chickens were not being euthanized fast enough. That didn't deter him. If one refused to being unalived, he would just toss the chicken on the ground and try again with another one. But the birds were all getting horrifically damaged, so they were flapping in circles on the ground, or walking with terrible stuttering limps, or screaming. One of the kids recorded it, and Jesus Christ, it was awful to watch. So I recommended the school district fire him immediately because holy, he sued for gender discrimination. Story 13. Not my case, but still a personal favorite. I was sitting in court waiting for my turn. Case going was a littering case. The officer said he saw the defendant throw a clear wrapper of a pack of gum out of his window. Guy decided to defend himself. The girlfriend takes the stand. The officer has already testified. Guy asks, "Did I throw a gum wrapper out the window?" She replies, "No, you did not," with a huge grin on her face. The defendant is now also grinning and goes, "What did I throw out of the window?" To which she replies, "It was the plastic wrapper from your cigarettes." The guy rests his case right there. Literally thought he would get off because the officer couldn't properly identify the clear plastic that he admits to throwing out the window. Story 14. A funny historical one here. Marshal Ney is on trial for treason after Napoleon gets overthrown for the second time. His lawyer desperately tries to save the marshal's life with an unusual take on things. Due to a border change, Marshal Ney's hometown was, at the time of the trial, in Prussia. Therefore, argued the lawyer, Marshal Ney was not technically French, and accordingly could not be guilty of treason. Marshal Ney disagreed and shouted out to the court, "I am French and I will remain French." He was subsequently found guilty and sentenced to being unalived. This also has a double whammy with cool last words. He asked for and was given permission to lead his own firing squad. His last words to them were, "Soldiers, when I give the command to fire, fire straight at my heart. Wait for the order. It will be my last to you. I protest against my condemnation. I have fought 100 battles for France, and not one against her. Soldiers, fire." Talk about a way to go. Story 15. A short one. The judge recused himself from a criminal case, publicly stating that he knew the defendant and that the defendant was a son of a witch and very guilty. Story 16. My brother was on a jury back in the days of MySpace. A woman had been hit by a big rig during foggy weather. She was suing for back injury. On the last day of the trial, they asked her if she had a MySpace account and brought up her site for the jury to see. I think all profiles were open then. There's a picture of her dancing on the hood of a car, and right next to it is a text exchange of her saying that she shouldn't go out too much because her lawyer says that she has to look injured. Needless to say, she lost the case. Story 17. A lawyer was verbally running through the evidence against the guy he was defending, trying to claim there wasn't enough to even call a trial. All totally fine, except he said, "I believe a more seasoned judge wouldn't have let this trial move forward," not knowing that the judge he's speaking to gave the okay to move the trial to this court. He was immediately given a hard motion denied. Story 18. I once attended oral arguments for the US Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. It's pretty much the big time. I watched a lawyer argue that his client received what's known as ineffective assistance of counsel at the trial from which she was appealing. The attorney, however, was not doing a very good job during oral arguments. So at one point, one of the judges on the panel leans forward and asks him, "Counselor, are you currently providing ineffective assistance of counsel?" Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and activate the bell button to receive notifications to my latest videos.